Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to the annual conclave on Shaping India's Urban Agenda 2023, co-hosted by Janaagraha and Rainmatter Foundation. My name is Karthik Seshan. I handle work on policy and insights at Janaagraha. And to begin the evening, I'd like to quickly run you through the proceedings from the day today. Over the last 3 hours, we've had 2 closed-door discussions where we deliberated in depth on how to catalyze large-scale capital for India's cities better and how to reimagine the architecture of city institutions from a city systems lens. Among other things, we delved on the definition of urban and the evolving definition of the rural-urban continuum, state capacities and the role that they can play in improving the quality of urban governance in our cities, the role of performance audit reports as a conduit to understand performance of urban governance, the need for consolidation of institutions, and the possibility of ward-level councillors as a nursery for leadership in urban governance. Among various other critical aspects that will be difficult to summarize right now, but the discussions were very rich, and on the heels of these discussions, it is my pleasure on behalf of the Janaagraha and Rainmatter Foundation teams to welcome you all to the 6th edition, to the release of the 6th edition of the ASICS report, the report that many of you are familiar with. Most of us know and acknowledge the significance of cities in a nation's progress and their role as hubs of economic and social growth. India's cities are burgeoning today, and by 2050, our cities are expected to host more than half of our population. They are also estimated to contribute about 2/3 of India's economic output and generate about 70% of our future employment. It's only fair then to reason that securing our nation's future hinges on our ability to strike a balance between economic growth, equitable access to services, environmental sustainability, and democratic engagement in our cities. And for all of these to be a reality, the state of governance in our urban centers plays an extremely critical role. ASICS is a study of the governance of Indian cities, and it is meant to serve as a diagnosis of the quality of laws, policies, institutions, and institutional processes underlying the quality of life in our cities. In its 6th edition, ASICS evaluates the quality of urban laws of all states and UTs in India through 52 questions using the city systems framework developed by Janaagraha. It assesses 82 municipal legislations, 44 town and country planning legislations, 176 allied legislations and rules, and 32 policies and allied documents. The in-depth survey was conducted over a year between December 2021 and December 2022. And the analysis and preparation of the report has been done over the months since then. In many ways, this is a seminal product from the Janaagraha stable. And through the latest edition, we are aiming to push the needle for transformative reforms in India's city governance. Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, the Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs, has agreed to grace the occasion as chief guest, and he'll be joining us soon for the release of the report. Before we commence, I'll quickly take you through the agenda for the evening. We'll start with a summary of insights from the ASICS report by Janaagraha, which will set context for the conversations thereafter. This will be followed by the release of the ASICS report by Minister Puri, post which Mr. Puri will have a conversation with Ms. Lata Venkatesh, the Executive Director of CNBC TV 18, who will also moderate the panel discussion that follows on the future of India's city systems. The panelists being Mr. BVR Subramaniam, CEO Niti Aayog, Ms. Vidya Shah, Executive Chairperson, Edelgive Foundation, Mr. Sameer Shishodia, CEO Rainmatter Foundation, and Mr. Srikant Vishwanathan, CEO Janaagraha. We are delighted to see the attendance at the event. We might have started a little late, but without any further delay, let me invite Anand. Is Anand in already? He's not in. Okay. Let me invite Vachana, the head of Municipal Law and Policy at Janaagraha, and the lead author of the ASICS report itself, to share their reflections and summary on ASICS. Vachana, please.
Good evening, everyone. We believe that India needs to traverse a meaningful and deliberate middle path between an urban idealism of directly elected mayors and unfettered powers and a near-sighted pragmatism of patchwork and band-aids, by which we mean the focus currently is on filling potholes rather than laying good roads and footpaths. This is indeed possible if we adapt urban agendas to context by state and by type and size of cities and leverage the benefits of 10 specific levers of transformative change. Next. 39% of state capitals, including Delhi, Bengaluru, Bhopal, Dehradun, do not have active master plans. Spatial development plans that are prepared, implemented, and enforced based on contemporary planning legislations founded on the framework that integrates the 4 E's: economy, equity, environment, and engagement will fundamentally transform the spatial character of our cities. Next. Only 42% of the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act has been implemented by states. A constitutional amendment that recognizes cities as distinct unit of governance will fundamentally catalyze urban transformation in India. Next. (1,400 plus cities, including Bengaluru, Mumbai, did not have elected mayors or councils, and some of these cities have not had active councils for over 9 years. Model municipal acts and modern city councils will provide much needed legislative backing and infrastructure support for councils and instill trust and credibility among citizens. Next. Only about 20% of the municipal expenditure is covered by property tax, which is the largest owned revenue source for a city government in India. So improving the financial position of city governments through predictable transfers and own revenue enhancement and making local governments financially sound is a critical instrument of change for us to pursue. Next. Around 90% of 4,800 cities in India do not have a digital system to track the physical and financial progress of infrastructure projects in our cities. So India's cities need a digital public finance management system which is able to track physical and financial progress of infrastructure projects and reporting and monitoring based on a single source of trusted data. Finally, 36% is the average vacancy in city governments of India. So a contemporary and strategic approach to human resource management will fundamentally transform the organizational effectiveness of city governments. We would urge you to read the ASICS 2023 report and understand these 10 instruments of change in depth. I will also take this opportunity to thank my team, Priyanka and Aishwarya and Maitri, who have worked closely in realizing ASICS 2023 report. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Vachana, for summarizing the ASICS report and a bit about its journey over the years. As many guests have told me in the process of planning this conclave and the report coming out itself, that for many of us in the urban sector, ASICS as a report has been necessary reading. And we are elated that the report is making a return after the last edition, which was in 2017. And beyond the report itself, we are looking for wide sectoral engagement, which follows, not just in terms of the understanding the insights that come from it, but in an attempt to translate it to action on the ground. Mr. Puri has arrived at the entry, and we are just waiting for him to come up and be part of the event with us. It's our pleasure to welcome the chief guest for the evening, Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. Please join me in welcoming him. Without further ado, may I request Swati and Ramesh Ramanathan, co-founders Jana Group, to now come up and deliver the opening remarks. You'll do it? You're doing it? Sorry, Shrikant Vishwanathan, the CEO of Janaagraha. Thank you.
So Swati, Ramesh and I agreed that I would do these opening remarks. I'm delighted to welcome each one of you to the 6th edition of the annual conclave on shaping India's urban agenda. We're doing this year after a gap of a few years. It's indeed very special for us. Deeply grateful for the time and engagement. A very warm welcome to Minister Hardeep Singh Puri for his time, as always. And as many of you may have noticed, he was on the dot. He walked in at 5:30, which is the time that he had committed. Thank you so much, sir. You're setting very high standards for all of us. I also extend a warm welcome to Mr. BVR Subramaniam, CEO of Niti Aayog, who's also staying back for the panel. We have other elected representatives. I'm not calling out each by name, but there are many, many people who are holding positions of office, holding public office, who are here with us today, both at the state and union government level. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Commitment from us that your time here, we are not taking your time here for granted. This entire conversation will be taken forward in terms of very clear actions, and we'll stay engaged and keep you posted. Back to you, Karthik.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Shrikant. It's time for us to move to the much-awaited release of the ASICS report 2023. And with that, I would request the chief guest for the evening, Mr. Puri, to kindly grace the dais. I would also request the other dignitaries, Mr. BVR Subramanian, Ms. Vidya Shah, Mr. Kailash Nath, Mr. Sameer Shisodia, Ms. Swati and Ramesh Ramanathan, Mr. Shrikant Vishwanathan, to come up on the dais for the release of the book. I would also request Vachana and Anand from Team Janaagraha to please come up on stage. Anand is the Chief Policy and Insight Officer at Janaagraha, and Vachana, as I said, is the lead author of the ASICS report. No, all of you, yeah, sir can stand up. Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, as the longest-serving Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs of the country, has been at the forefront of significant investment in urban infrastructure, increasing investment in urban infrastructure by the union government over the last many years. Mr. Puri's tenure in the ministry has given much-needed impetus to the pursuit of strengthening India's city systems, and we look forward to listening to his experience. And I would request Mr. Puri to please share with us his thoughts through the chief guest's address. Please.
A very good evening to all of you. My friend and collaborator, Shri Subramaniam ji, Nitin Kamath ji, Samir Sisodia ji, Vidya Shah ji, my friends Swati and Ramesh Ramanathan, and Shrikant Viswanathan ji. I'm not always sure whether being introduced as the longest-serving Housing and Urban Affairs Minister is intended as a compliment or as a reminder of what more needs to be done. But let me start by sharing with you, and in the interest of full disclosure, that when I was called upon to join the Honorable Prime Minister's team, and that's almost 6 years and 2 months ago, and I found myself transported into the urban space. The learning experience is something that I often comment on. The processes that have got us to where we have in terms of the central schemes are also now well documented and can be empirically verifiable. But when I joined after about 39 years as a civil servant dealing with issues relating to foreign and security policy, some trade policy, it was absolutely essential that I found that I needed to find those who could guide me in the journey that we were undertaking in the urban space. And I must confess that Janaagraha was not only in many ways a philosophical guide, but they helped me at every stage. I see many others around this table, including my friend Jagan and so many others that I've started naming them. So I think no matter which way we look at it, the urban rejuvenation that the Prime Minister embarked on, I had a predecessor who was far more ambitious. He used to use the word urban renaissance. I am more modest, so I am cautious with words. But I can tell you all that is really, now whether you take the central schemes, you take what has happened, all that is quantifiable. But I don't think the purpose today is to talk about the government schemes as much as it is to look at the ASICS report. By the way, I have a young researcher who put a yellow slip on it. I'm sure I'll take it out during the discussion. And he said, if you get a chance to comment on it, don't hold back. It's fantastic. You know, it was superlative. He's talked about and told me things which were not there earlier, etc. But those are the high standards that one has come to associate with my friends Swati and Ramesh and the work that Janaagraha does. I just want to make one introductory comment, then list out a few things which I think we have done well. And that is that the Prime Minister was very clear that urbanization presented an opportunity because of the many challenges. I think he was acutely conscious of the fact that the urban space had been subjected to neglect. He doesn't talk about that much. I'm much harsher in my characterization, and I think the neglect has been criminal in many respects. But we tried to make up in terms of what we've done, in terms of the urban, what you call the central schemes. But I think the steps that we have taken, which I would like to point out today, and I'll come to that after I just give you a few comments on the 6th edition of the ASICS report, which has been released today. When I was going through the report yesterday, and I'll come to the yellow slip of my researcher later, the fact that this report includes the study of 82 municipal legislations, 44 town and country planning acts, 176 allied acts, rules and notifications, 32 other policy scheme documents, and 27 additional data sets pertaining to urban development in India. It's truly a meticulous and praiseworthy effort, and I want to compliment you for that. I glanced through the 10 key recommendations that this report has made. I endorse these propositions and believe that these 10 instruments of change can deepen the principle of decentralization and devolution in urban governance and revitalize the spirit of the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. I also note that the report has acknowledged that the Modi government has taken some unprecedented actions in working towards this agenda, including, and those are the points I think we make with confidence and in the full knowledge that that is the right direction. A six-fold increase in the Finance Commission grants to urban local bodies from the 13th Finance Commission to the 15th Finance Commission. The High-Level Committee on Urban Planning, which was constituted in 2022, recommended in its first report to set up a National Urban Regional Planning Authority to be led by the Prime Minister. The 15th Finance Commission distinguished between million-plus urban agglomerations and other cities, providing for 100% outcome-based funding of approximately rupees 38,196 crores to 50 urban agglomerations with incentives for air quality, water supply, and sanitation. The Amrut program instituted 11 mandatory reforms in ULBs, including improving creditworthiness of cities, operationalizing municipal bonds, and the professionalization of the municipal cadre. 12 cities have raised more than rupees 4,384 crores through municipal bonds. The one-of-a-kind integrated command and control centers, which have been set up under the Smart Cities mission, they are closely monitoring and enhancing municipal performance through ICT interventions, and I'm very happy that all 100 today are operational. In 2020, Mission Karam Yogi, now Karam Yogi Bharat, was launched as an ambitious civil service reform. I can confidently say that for the first time since the 74th Amendment Act was passed in 92-93, there's been a government which has taken measures to not only decentralize implementation of urban development programs, but also provide our ULBs with greater financial resources and access to build capacity, execute large-scale missions, and take risks. The Modi government has disbursed unprecedented funds to undertake urban planning reforms. In 2023-24, this allocation was rupees 15,000 crores. We have incentivized and prioritized reforms as well. Before I list some of those reforms, I should like to remind you, and through you, remind myself, that the total spend on the urban space, which is the cumulative amount of money which was dispersed through the central projects in the 10 years between 2004 and 14, was something like 1,57,000 crores. The Modi government central schemes began to be conceptualized in May 2014 when the Honorable Prime Minister took charge, but most of these schemes actually saw the light of day and implementations from June 2015. This is true of almost all the schemes, which means we have had 8 years and a few months of implementation, and the spend has gone up from 1,57,000 crores to nearly 18 lakhs crores. So if you send 11 times or 12 times spend, and as we speak every day, these schemes are nearing maturity or maturation. I think the time has come, and already some of these are being reconceptualized to take them forward. But I should come back to my notes. What are we doing, the government, in terms of making our cities water secure, transit-oriented development, adoption of transferable development rights, integration of blue and green high infrastructure through nature-based solutions, affordable housing through in-situ rehabilitation, increased capacity building and recruitment, GIS-based master planning, and online building permission system. I am not sure, but I've been led to believe by some of my friends who were early collaborators in this, that this constitutes the most comprehensive and planned urbanization program undertaken anywhere in the world. And I think the comprehensiveness of this program also speaks to the fact that you started with ad hoc measures earlier. So you were able to aggregate those and then scale them up. In the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, with which I have the privilege of being associated, it was based on demand assessments which came from the states. Our original demand assessment was around 1 crore. We raised it subsequently to 1 crore 12 lakh. Today, I can say, as the scheme has its final coordinates in place, we have sanctioned 1 crore 19 lakhs, 1 crore 9 lakh homes have been grounded, and I think about 77, 78 lakhs have already been handed over to beneficiaries. The Swachh Bharat mission, and I think this is the fulcrum, when the Honorable Prime Minister assumed responsibility in 2014, the total amount of waste which was processed was, according to official statistics, around 16-17%. But I should qualify those official statistics to say they are based on data feedback from the states, and I always have a healthy respect for every state submitting its data when they round off a little more. So I would say it's 15% or 16% of our waste in 2014 was being reprocessed. I'm very happy to inform you today that figure has reached 76%. But more than the happiness of how much waste is being reprocessed, I say with a sense of confidence before this distinguished audience that I have absolutely no doubt that in the next 2 years, 100% of the waste that we will produce will be reprocessed. Now that's a big statement to make because it's always a journey, a tough call on how much you produce and how much you can reprocess, because that explains the legacy dump sites that many of our cities have. And I will make an equally bold statement. In 2 years, we'd have completed the bioremediation and all those dump sites would have been remediated by then. Amrut addressed the basic social infrastructure such as water and sewage in 500 cities. These were cities with a population of 1 lakh and above. We provided more than 1.72 crore water tap connections and 1.35 crore sewer connection. Now you can argue that in terms of geography and scale, Amrut 1 was probably covered only 65% of our urban space. And Swachh Bharat Mission also, the strength of that is not the number of toilets we built, which is 110%, 120% of what was required in terms of public and community toilets, the individual household toilets, but the fact that a scheme of the government was transformed into a project of the government became a Jan Andolan. It became a project of the people. And I think it's that spirit which speaks to its success even more eloquently. But again, we didn't stop there. As soon as Swachh Bharat Mission 1 and Amrut 1 were nearing completion, we produced the Rev 2.0, and the resources for Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0 and Amrut 2.0 is a whopping 4,71,000 crores. Now, these resources will take our cities from ODF plus to ODF plus plus, make them water secure, and a host of other things which we are doing. I want to briefly touch on the smart city mission and our metro system. A common refrain in any action I had, any interaction I had in 2017 when I joined the team was, ye smart cities kahan hai, kya hoti hain, etc. That question doesn't appear anymore because the Smart Cities Mission, 6,069 projects worth over 1.1 lakh crores have been completed. The question now is, what India requires is many more smart cities. And I think when the Prime Minister and the decision-making decides on that, there's already talk of smart districts, there's already talk of smart blocks, using technology, digital technology, to take the lessons learned from the smart cities experience. We have clearly learnt on the job when the BJP produced its manifesto for the 2014 election. The language used was, we will produce 100 new smart cities. Clearly, those who were drafting the manifesto had only a nodding acquaintance with the job at hand. When we got down to it, we discovered that existing cities, and in India, I should have started by saying urbanization has taken a robust, autonomous shape of its own. So you needed to do something about the existing cities. So when this smart cities mission was unveiled through a system of citizen-centered consultation and bidding, it's not surprising that out of the 190 of the smart cities which got selected were based on the area-based development of existing cities. And that's how it should be, and 10 were new greenfield cities. Going forward, I imagine a mix of both, but the lessons that you've learned, even as we've gone along, many states have come and done some smartifying of their cities on their own using technology, which results in immediate benefit on issues relating to women's security, traffic management, and a host of other benefits which flow from that. Our metro system started in 2002 when Vajpayee ji was the Prime Minister. Today we have 871 kilometers of operational metro lines. We have another 905 kilometers or so which is under construction. And these construction deadlines are pretty well defined. Within a period of time, if it's due in, say, August of 24, it will be ready around then. We will then have the world's second largest urban transport or metro system, next only to China, bigger than the United States, bigger than South Korea and Japan, because I think those countries, and I'm not saying this out of any, because I think they've already saturated and built the metros wherever they have to. In India, I think even this 871 plus 905, I think is just the beginning, because the kind of pressures which come from even newer cities, Bangalore, once more, Chennai, Hyderabad, Delhi NCR region has about 400 kilometers if you look at the spread on either side of the NCR. During the pandemic, we discovered that whilst all these schemes were designed and were maturing, some of the more vulnerable sections of our society, the ready patriwalas or the street vendors, were completely vulnerable. They were borrowing money at exorbitant rates from money lenders. So I think this was a very timely scheme of financial inclusion, where entrepreneurs, instead of having to go to money lenders, they were given 10,000 rupees as starting loan. If they repaid it in time, another 20. If they repaid that in time, another 50. So you turn this micro inclusion scheme. And today I think, I don't have the exact figures, but I think we have more than 50 lakh loans have been distributed, and the NPAs are not significant. I mean, as in all these schemes, and you have converted a scheme of micro inclusion also to integrate them into the formal economy. They become beneficiaries of all the other Pradhan Mantri Kendriya Yojanas. Under the NULM, we have 34.2 lakh livelihoods have been created. The mission has imparted skill training to 14 or 15 lakh candidates. I want to fast forward a little. How much of GDP does the urban space produce? I think the audience that we have here is far more competent to comment on that. But irrespective of whether our urban population is 30% plus now, or will be 40% and 600 million people living in urban spaces by 2040, or if 50% or 800 million by 2050, I think economic activity, production of GDP in the urban space, there is a growing convergence there. Our ULBs are the interface between people and policy. I have very often agonized because today urban services require technical skills and professionalism of a very special category. I have many friends from the IAS sitting here. Don't want to do. I sometimes wonder why we do not. Can generalists serve? Yes, a good IAS officer can be a very good municipal commissioner. But I think the time has come in terms of both the political changes we need to make, in terms of having empowered mayors with a longer tenure. I can tell you, when I first went to Indore, it was a few days after I had joined as Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs, and there was a circular economy or a 3 hours conference. Reuse, recycle, and whatever. The issue was, there were international participants. I met the Japanese minister, and since I speak a little bit of Japanese, I asked him, when did you arrive? He said, last evening. I said, what did you do? He said, I went around the city. I said, looking for what? And he was very, to the point. He said, I was looking for dirt. So I said, I didn't understand initially. Then he said, no, because this city has a reputation of being world-class in terms of its, cleanliness. It comes in the Swachhta Sarvekshan we carry out. It does very well every year. But I think that's the kind of tribute. I was there recently. They won 6 times. They won the Swachhta Sarvekshan award. So I asked myself a question. What produces this kind of winning formula? There's no easy answer. I could turn around and say a good municipal commissioner, a good mayor, a good chief minister, but I think it's all of them. Once that culture seeps in and you drop pride, I gave a figure about how many cities have floated municipal bonds. If you have a clean city, land values go up. There's pride. And in the last meeting I attended with the Honorable Chief Minister, he was telling a story about a visitor took an Ola or Uber from the airport and was driving and said that the passenger, perhaps a little less mindful, finished having a packet of chips, lowered the window and threw the wrapper out. The Ola driver stopped there, the wind had carried it, the meter was still running, but till he got that packet back and shamed the passenger, I think the journey wasn't over. I think it's little things like this which make a difference. I'm sure that our cities will be the battlegrounds for action against most global or local challenges, be it climate change or pandemics. ULBs are the first mile government for every citizen. We must look to empower our mayors and city councils because they have successfully demonstrated that they are capable of driving global action at the local level. I think the Modi government has been pushing this agenda through a system of outcome-based incentives for open urban governance. Competition-based programs and incentive-based programs has resulted in ULBs pulling up their socks. I think as I conclude these remarks, hopefully to provoke you a bit, but only within manageable bandwidth, I think as India develops, and I mean this seriously, as we go on from being we'll be around a $4 trillion economy by the end of the year, to say a $5 trillion economy in the next 2 years, going on towards an $8-10 trillion economy around 2030. Fundamental changes will take place. Changes which will be conditioned, if not molded, by the changing demographic profile, changes which will be influenced by the fact that you have a more resilient, better off population. But what is the shape that our urban space has to take? And I believe that is something that this distinguished audience, all of you, many of you have devoted your lifetimes to this, others have come on to this urban space from different parts of your experience. So I thank you for giving me a patient hearing, and I look forward to working with you for the remaining period of the time, at least of this tenure. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Minister Puri, for sharing your valuable insights and for reflecting not just on the exponential increase and the need for increase in urban spending, but also our ability to improve the sustainability of the cities that we live in. We are running on a tight schedule, and so without further delay, may I request Ms. Lata Venkatesh to please come on stage. Lata has been an eminent business journalist for decades and has had stints in all major streams of media. She now serves as the executive editor at CNBC TV 18 and will be engaging with Minister Puri in an interview to delve deeper on some of the aspects mentioned in his speech and to hear his thoughts on urban development in India, post which Lata will also moderate the scheduled panel discussion. Over to you, Lata.
Thank you very much, Karthik. And thank you very much, Minister. It's not just that you have been the longest serving urban and housing and urban affairs minister. It's also that you have brought to bear a lot more money from 8,000 crores to over 40,000 crores, 47,000 crores. That's a 500% increase in the amount of funds that has come during your tenure. So before I come to what inspired and what were your goals when you got that money, my first question is, why don't you give us a headline, sir? The government is going to continue with a subsidy program, a credit-linked subvention program for housing. So as housing and urban affairs, can we expect that program very quickly? I think it's for the poor. It is low-income housing, affordable housing.
No, I think the headline has already come. I think the Honorable Prime Minister, when he was speaking addressing the nation from the ramparts of the Red Fort, he spoke about 2 crore, 2 crore Didis, Lakhpati Didis, okay? Then he spoke about several other things, and this interest subvention was, I think, one of these schemes. Yes. It's at a very advanced stage of finalization. You know, whenever we send something to the Ministry of Finance, what is it called? Expenditure Finance Commission, somehow it gets out. So the figure is already in the marketplace, but being a disciplined civil servant, I won't use it till it's finally cleared. But I think you should recall that an interest subvention scheme was actually part of our Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. We had AHP, which was Affordable Housing in Partnership, where state government gives some money, center and state then give a little bit of money to. That scheme's done very well. You had beneficiary-led construction, which is if you had a traditional family property, then state government or central government will give some money. Then you had in-situ slum rehabilitation, all right. And you had what is called CLSS, Credit-Linked Subsidy Scheme, which was for, included the middle-income group. So I think the discussion in the government in the last few weeks has been what should be the coverage, what should be the floor space for which it should be given, whether, what is the amount should be given. But you're absolutely right. I think that scheme has been announced, and I think it's only a matter of time before the details are officially out in the market. Okay.
Yeah. So should we expect it in a couple of months, in a couple of weeks?
No, even earlier. Okay.
Yeah. And is it likely to be, I think the CLSS was a subvention for 9 lakhs, a maximum of 9 lakhs.
I want to resist the temptation to go into those details. As I said, I think some of them have already put these details out into the public domain, but it's not correct for a serving minister to get into it till the announcement is made. But you're on the right track. It'll cover a large number of people. It'll be a interest subvention, up to a particular point, and then floor areas defined, etc. I think they're finalizing it.
Okay, and it's, I believe, for 5 years, but some of it will come this year itself?
No, I don't see any point in any scheme which comes after 5 years. Everything has to come now.
No, the whole 60,000 crore.
No. I am not getting into the figures, whether it's 60,000 crores or 20,000 or 200,000. I'm not getting into that, yeah.
Okay. The other scheme that was very interesting, and I'm trying to relate both urban affairs and housing, and that's why my questions are intersecting both, was the rental accommodation that was sought to be subsidized.
That's earlier, rental housing, affordable rental housing. See, I'll explain to you what happened. When the schemes were conceptualized and implemented in June 2015, they were strongly anchored in whatever the demand we received, and you designed the scheme. But as you went along, some changes came. Like the COVID pandemic, you had to look at the problem of street vendors, because people who were working in agriculture were still given their food. They still got some money, even if, and the rural areas were not, there was no shutdown of the kind that the urban space had. Equally, when the pandemic took place, a lot of people just left work and went back home. They got used to the idea, and some didn't want to come back. So suddenly a need was felt to work out a scheme for affordable rental housing. And that scheme has taken off. It's a action by the central government, by the state governments, by the private sector. It has different verticals, but it's doing well.
No, we didn't get any follow-through for that. So I just wanted to know if you have any numbers. That seemed to be an admirable combination of
I have the numbers. I
okay.
can share the numbers or send them to you. I have them
But
in that big
it is
photo.
still one of the pillars of...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You see, let me start by saying, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is conceptually designed to emanate from the states. So if you are a resident of Bihar, you obviously will apply for a Awas in your place of residence, or if you are from Assam, from there. Then the state government puts together the demand and sends it to the center. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has a committee headed by the Secretary, Housing and Urban Affairs, which is called the Committee for Monitoring and Sanctioning of Projects. They meet every month and then sanction those under different verticals. The problem is the person who leaves his home, let's say wherever it is, and comes to work, say, in another state, the benefit of the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana will be there. He or she, meanwhile, still needs a place to live in. Therefore, building complexes for migrant labor, for rental housing, for people who are coming to look for jobs, it's designed to fill one of those gaps. This credit-linked subsidy scheme serves another purpose. If you're a young professional, you come into the employment market, husband and wife, they want to take a loan, they don't have the resources, so the government steps in with a bit of a filler in terms of interest subvention.
No, I get your point. It's just that, at least at that time in 2020, we thought this rental urban is such a good idea because, I mean, migrant...
I'll tell you something. Good ideas, I can tell you, the proof of it is in the... pudding is in the eating. What happened then was you had massive amounts of inventories. Okay, for a variety of reasons. And, pre-RERA, what happened.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people, there was completely buildings lying empty. 2-3 things are happening. Inventories are coming down rapidly. Land values are shooting up. The sales are going up every quarter, 20, 25, 27%. So there is a rationalization taking place in that market. So rental housing also, I mean, today there are some aberrations still. I mean, the cost of buying a property and the rent you get from it maybe
is not very...
it must be mismatched, but that is liable to happen because of the journey we undertook in that way.
Okay. So now let me come to what you spoke about, empowerment and mayors. Now, that's not something which has been a uniform experience. In fact, one of the annual surveys, findings is that empowerment of mayors and councils has not at all been what was envisaged by the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. So, in your experience, it looks like very often the state governments do not want to give up, and that perhaps impedes the empowerment of the urban bodies. Can you give us some examples where you have been able to work with state governments to empower urban bodies?
I wouldn't want to sit here and do finger pointing, frankly. But what you're saying is an understatement. Look, Lata, I'm on your side on this. But there's no purpose served for me. I think for any of us, I spent a career of 39 years in the Foreign Service. I lived in many cities which can rightfully boast of the mayor being a very important part of the political system. I mean, Giuliani in New York, he cleaned up the law and order situation. I could give you examples from Tokyo, London, very famous mayors. I think two fundamental prerequisites in this are you need a proper tenure for the mayor. So I have a situation where I have one of my favorite mayors is somebody I call the pistol Rani of Kanpur. I'm giving an example. She has a pistol here. She rides a scooter. And everybody knows the mayor. She's got authority. She goes to different places. She's connected. She has a longer tenure than most. But you have mayors in Delhi which their tenures end before they start. So we need to work towards stable tenures, then giving the mayors the authority. Who is to blame in this? It will require a closed-door seminar. One is you don't blame the state governments because the state government also wants delivery. Now, if you appreciate and comprehend the importance of the role of the mayor, then political parties must also ensure that they are putting people in there who can do that. Equally, I think whilst everybody is committed to a set of objectives, I think they would want to be very careful that they don't reach that, do that implementation till they're ready with the instruments. So but it's work in progress.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that, because ultimately empowerment at urban body level.
But you also have empowerment of women in mind, don't you?
Oh, I do.
Most of these mayors, many of them are ladies. So I think when they've got 33.13% reservation in the state assemblies and in the central parliament, I know this was an aside, but I see that happening. A lot of women are making very effective, ladies are very effective mayors.
Yes.
I mean,
and more sensitive mayors, more than,
now, that
helps.
could open up a debate. I would agree with you since I'm a feminist personally, but being married to one, but otherwise, okay. Yeah.
Fair enough. So the final thing I wanted to ask you was that you're also the energy minister, the petroleum minister, and piped gas is something that, you know, that has been at the heart of government's working. Now, Janaagraha has this tender, sure set of, guidelines, which has gone into detail on how you must have duct-wise under footpath laying, so that you don't keep on digging up footpaths. At least in Mumbai, you know, from metros to gas connections to, telecom fibers, everyone is digging up.
That's part of Gati Shakti. You have to dig up only once. Look,
yeah. So have you, I assume that your smart city program have been influenced by what Janaagraha has done in terms of this
I paid them an open tribute. We've been influenced. We talked to them. I said we have sessions with them. And I don't think I've done this very often, but where is my friend?
Ramesh?
No, Ramesh is there. There he is. He and I have co-authored pieces together. I talked to Ramesh. Look, take that as a given. I started with that. I'll also read out that yellow slip my researcher said, if you speak about that. I said it in my own way, but I think there's genuine appreciation when somebody is doing good work. But I want to, since you brought up the LNG
Yes.
pipeline, look, we just had the 12th bidding round the other day with the regulator.
Day before yesterday.
We are now taking it, we had earlier 98% of the population covered, 88% of the geographical area covered. We're taking it to 100% now. What has happened is that laying a pipeline is not difficult. Taking a pipeline to a reasonably congested place and having dispersal is not difficult because you have a big building. The problem is in some of our rural areas, particularly in the northeast, where the consumer is widely distributed over a period of time. We want to complete that. But since we were going into 100% completion, I added my little contribution to it. I said, now don't rest at 100%. Now we take the pipeline to the island areas also. So that's work in progress. Some of our targets earlier were not easy to fill. I'll give you 2 or 3 statistics quickly before we conclude. You know, we had LPG cylinders. We had 14 crore connections in 2014. Lata, we've taken those up to 32 or 33 crores today. Piped gas, by the way, piped gas is about 22% cheaper than the cylinder gas. So, plus it's easier in many other respects. We had about 25 lakh consumers. Today we have more than 1 crore consumers. And we have done the infrastructure laying. Some of the areas, you see, it was an experience which is still ongoing. A lot of people accepted the obligation, but they were slow in complying. And the kind of measures we had put in place in the original contracts for compliance were not sufficiently punitive to hold out a pressure. We are correcting on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I think I've taken more time than I should have. Let me just conclude with a personal agenda. I think the metros came to Mumbai 50 years too late. If you could use your good offices.
You mean the metro transport?
Absolutely, the metro transport.
I mean, you should have elected a BJP government before 2002. That's when it all started. And my answer to metro success elsewhere is this is the way to go.
Well, sir, from 2002 to 2023, we are still not well covered.
No, wait a minute.
No, I'm just giving you my personal request, if you can speed it up.
I entirely agree with you. I'll tell you, there are two things that when you talk about urban transport on the metro thing, it's a clean, efficient transportation. It's environmentally friendly, number one. Number two, today, Lata, you asked the question, so I'm going to try and... We have more than 1 crore ridership per day. 1 crore per day in metros. Delhi, pre-pandemic, the height was something like 65 lakhs. And today, we have crossed that after the pandemic. But let me give you a perspective. In India, something like 60 million people go to the petrol station every day to fill up. Just imagine if you did not have a metro, how many that would be, number one. So absolutely good transport policy means moving people around, not moving cars around. For that you need, we're going to have an inauguration of an RRTS in the next 2 or 3 days. Metro lines are coming up. As I said, we have 870 kilometers, but another 900 plus kilometers is coming up. We will have the world's second largest metro system. But you know, I can't gaze into the future. But if you have, let's say, a $20 trillion plus economy by 2040 or thereabouts, I'm sure people would want, and especially if you have last mile connectivity from when you get up at the station to where you have to go, it's far better to be having modern urban transport in the form of metro lines. And especially in the bigger cities, I think Mumbai, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Chennai, and that experience is being borne out. But equally, I think you must start by considering metro projects are capital intensive. So if you have friends of the kind I have in Delhi politics, who will say, sir, pollution kam ho jayegi, isko mufat kar do. No, mufat to kar do, but you still have to pay back the 28,000 crores. So now all the metro systems, in my assessment, and I choose my words carefully, they're all running in an economically viable way and they are performing their job and we're able to pay back our loans.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you.